I never imagined the moment I'd have to choose between my wife and my child. But when my 16-year-old daughter called me sobbing, begging not to go back to a school that was destroying her mental health, my wife didn't ask how she was. She asked how inconvenient this would be for her. And that's when everything I believed about my marriage shattered into a million pieces. If you believe protecting your child should never, ever require permission. If you've ever been forced into a moral corner by someone you loved, hit that like button, subscribe, and settle in. Because this story proves that sometimes, the real villains are the ones sleeping right beside you. I've been married to Nora for 5 years, and we were together for 2 years before that. On paper, we looked like a blended family success story. She had a daughter who was 10 when we got together, and I had my daughter, Ria, who was 16. Ria doesn't live with me, and that is not because I didn't want her to it, it's because life doesn't always hand you clean choices. After my divorce from Ria's mom, both of us were transferred for work. We ended up in different states, on different timelines. It was a mess. After months of discussions, lawyers, and so many tears, we agreed that Ria would live primarily with her mom. I'd fly her out once a month for a long weekend. She'd spend the entire summer with me. We'd alternate holidays. It hurt like hell every single time I had to put her on that plane back. But we made it work. Ria and I talk constantly. I mean, every single day. She tells me everything. I've never missed a summer. Never missed a birthday. And Nora, she always said she loved Ria like her own. I believed her. I really, truly did. Until recently, the problem started quietly at Ria's school. It began with snide comments in the hallways, kids laughing as she walked by. Then it moved online. Cruel messages, edited photos, threats. A group of boys at her school decided she was an easy target, and they were relentless. My ex and I were on the phone with the school constantly. We had meetings, we sent emails, they made promises, but nothing changed. The school did nothing. By Thanksgiving, Ria wasn't the same kid. She was withdrawn, quiet. She barely spoke. She barely ate. She'd flinch every time her phone buzzed. Nora saw all of this. She listened when I told her what was happening. She nodded sympathetically. She even hugged Ria and told her it would be okay. I thought, thank God she understands. Thank God she's on our side. I was so wrong. Winter break came, and it was a temporary relief. But as the break ended, the boys escalated their attacks online. They knew she'd be back soon. One night, my phone rang late. It was after midnight. Ria's name lit up the screen. I answered, and all I could hear was sobbing. This wasn't just teenage crying. It was the kind of desperate, broken sound that comes from someone who feels like they're drowning and can see the surface. She told me she couldn't do it anymore. She said she didn't feel safe in her own school, in her own town. She felt trapped. She said that even just transferring to another school nearby didn't feel like enough of an escape. Then, through her tears, she asked me the question that every parent both fears and hopes for. Dad, can I please come live with you? My answer was instant. There was no hesitation. Yes, of course, always. I hung up and immediately called my ex. She was heartbroken, but she agreed. We both knew Ria needed out of that environment now, not later. We had to act fast. So, after we hung up, I called Nora. I expected her to be concerned. I expected her to ask about logistics, maybe feel a little anxious about the sudden change. What I got was pure rage. She started yelling that I should have told Ria no, that I had no right to make that decision without consulting her first. She called it too much disruption. She said her own daughter's routine was more important, and then she said something that I will never forget for the rest of my life. She said, as your wife, I should have veto power over this. Veto power. Over my child's safety. Over her mental health. I told her, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. I am not asking for your permission to protect my daughter. And then she hung up on me. That night, I came home to a house that was eerily quiet, an empty house. Nora had sent her daughter to a friend's house for the night. It was like she was trying to quarantine her from Ria, like my daughter's pain was some kind of contagious disease. When Nora finally came home, she laid it out plainly. She didn't sign up to be a full-time stepmom to a teenager with problems. She didn't want the responsibility. What she wanted was control. And if I went through with bringing Ria to live with us, she would emotionally disengage from my daughter completely. She would ignore her. She would treat her like a ghost in our own home. And that's when I finally realized. This wasn't about inconvenience, it was about power. It was about ownership. She felt she owned our life, our home, and by extension, me. And Ria was a threat to that ownership. So I looked at her, and I told her something she clearly did not expect. I said that if she could just opt out of being a stepmom, then I could opt out of being her financial safety net. Her grand plan to quit her job next year and become a stay-at-home mom, well, that was off the table. Suddenly, the dynamic shifted. It got so heated that her mother called, having heard an earful from Nora, but her mom didn't side with her. She tore into Nora. She said she was ashamed. She said she raised her better than to abandon a child in need. Nora stopped yelling after that. But the resentment, was practically a third person in the room. She didn't give up. Instead, she changed tactics. She demanded that all decisions about every single one had to go through her first, even financial ones. She wanted to approve what I spent on my own daughter. That's when the last piece of the puzzle clicked into place, hitting me like a punch to the chest. A person who truly loves a child doesn't negotiate compassion. They don't put terms and conditions on their support. They just offer it. Nora didn't love Ria. She tolerated her as long as she was a visitor, a temporary part of the picture. The moment Ria needed to be a priority, she became a problem. I didn't explode. I didn't threaten her. I just acted. I went online and enrolled Ria in the local high school myself. I found her a therapist and booked her first appointment. I went out and bought new bedding and posters to redecorate her room, to make it feel like her own space. And quietly, I started preparing something else. An exit strategy. Because I learned that the most satisfying revenge isn't screaming or fighting. It's choosing your child, without apology. And in doing so, you let the other person realize they were never the priority they thought they were. The day Ria arrived was a day I'll never forget. She stood on the doorstep with her suitcase, her eyes tired but hopeful. And I watched Nora's face as she saw what she had tried so hard to block. A father who would not bend. A daughter who was here to stay. And for the first time, I think she understood. She hadn't just lost control of the situation. She had lost her relevance in my life. Sometimes, the person who reveals themselves as the villain in your story isn't loud and obvious. They're calm, they're entitled, and they're standing directly between you and your child. If you believe that kids should always come first, hit that like button. Let us know in the comments, what would you have done in my situation? And make sure you subscribe, because these stories don't just end here. There's always more to learn. Thanks for